Hello everyone, Das Comics, this is Sean here with you. Just thought I'd do a little bit of commentary on a couple of things that's going on right now. One thing that is crazy to me right now is the Marvel Rivals effect on some of the comic books that are out right now. One being this one right here, which I purchased off the shelf. It's Jeff, #1. This book is currently selling for anywhere from $40 to $65, sold listings on eBay. And that is kind of crazy to me. And all over this Jeff the Land Shark being put in a video game. Now, the reason why I bought this in the first place was just for the novelty of it. I remember seeing this on the shelf and thinking, what in the world is this? It's Jeff. It's a crazy novelty book. That's why I bought it in the first place. And to think that this thing has blown up like that is crazy to me. And I know that I could throw this thing on eBay right now and get $50, $60 out of it easy. But I'm not going to do that because, #1, it's just not my thing. I'm not in it for flipping like that. And that's another thing I wanted to talk about in this video is kind of end game. There's a lot of what's your end game with your comic collection. And I've seen some discussion about are you a real comic collector if you have monetary gain in your mind for your comic collection, or are you in it for the money or that kind of thing? And I think that anybody who buys a comic book and bags and boards it and puts it in a box, anyone who does that is in it for the money, right? I mean, who buys comic books these days without thinking that it's some kind of a, I don't want to say investment, but holds some kind of value, right? I know my end game has changed over the years a little bit. If you've watched any of my haul videos, you'll know that I buy multiple copies of books, and I always have. And for 25 years, the 25 years that I've been collecting, I've always bought multiple copies of stuff. And the reason for that is because, #1, I have 3 children, 3 kids. I was always of the thought that I want each of them to have a copy of whatever I bought. I know that sounds ridiculous, but I wanted to, like, especially if it's something like, it started early. It started with, like, I remember Amazing Fantasy that came out in 2004, that series. Amadeus Cho, his first appearance is in number 15 of that series. I know I bought 3 of those off the rack because I have 3 kids. So every time I thought that there was going to be a big book, I'd always buy 3 copies of it. At least now I buy more than that. Now I don't know. I have that kind of mindset. I have a collector / investor mindset. Yes, I do think of it as an investment. 100% I do. I wouldn't really do it if I didn't. Or I wouldn't have the end game that I do if I didn't. My end game, at first, when I first started collecting, was I wanted something physical to leave passed down to my kids. I always thought about that with my dad, and I talked to him about comic books too, because he passed away early this year. He was 81 years old. He grew up in the 50s, the 40s and 50s, and I often spoke with him about comic books back when he was growing up. Did he buy comic books? Did he see comic books or everything? And he said he did. He said they always bought comic books where he was, but of course they just threw them out. They never kept nothing. And the thought always percolated in my mind, what if Dad would have collected those books, took care of them, saved them, and passed them down, right, to us? Now, I know that it's a different era. I know that books of my era are rarity is a lot less of a deal because nobody saved books back then. Everyone, all the kids, they were throwaway. They were garbage books. You pay a dime for it and then you throw it out, you read it, you throw it out. I get that. But that doesn't mean that I can't have something for my kids, right? So that was always kind of in my mind about my collecting, what my purpose for it was to have something for my kids. And my initial end game was always to have something like when I pass away, to pass down to them. And that has changed because over time I've evolved in my thinking about that they're really not into this stuff like I am, right? And I now look at that as more of a burden for them to have to deal with when I'm gone. So my new end game is, and I hope that I have time, to know. Basically, I guess what I'm trying to say is I hope I just don't die suddenly. I hope I reach an age, and my end game plan is to reach 75 years old and then liquidate my whole collection to a bulk type, like a Bryce Comics or something like that. Someone who buys collections, and I won't piece it out at all. I won't let it be cherry picked or anything. Every book that I buy off the shelf will be in my collection. I'll never pull the big keys out and sell it. And I have some big books. So that'll be my end game is 20. I'm 51. So about 25 years from now, if I make it, of course that would change if I got a terminal illness or something. Then urgency I would liquidate then. But hopefully that don't happen. So that's my plans with this. The main thing is I thoroughly enjoy. This is part of my life. This is something that I love, is collecting comics and reading comic books. And so it's not like I'm just doing it with them in mind. This is part of my existence, is doing this. My Wednesdays are my favorite day. I love going to the comic shop, talking to everybody, talking to the shop people, talking about stories, what's hot, what's not, that kind of thing. I've just always loved that. So that'll not change. I'll just continue to do that. But yeah, this Jeff book totally blows me away that, this thing is selling for that. And like I was getting at with this book, I could put this on eBay and sell it. But I'm not interested in that. This will be in my collection 25 years from now, and you know what? It'll probably be a $10 book in 25 years. $10, $15, something like that. So, yeah, I could sell it right now, but $65 isn't going to make me or break me. So I'd rather have the book than a $50 bill. So it's all part of the collection. Speaking of the collection, this is pretty cool. I can actually remember purchasing my first comic book ever. My story is I was a sports cards collector. I collected sports cards big time in the very early 90s. But I suddenly realized that sports memorabilia really did not have real value. And it is about value. It is absolutely about value. Anyone that tells you that they collect and they just like to read for the stories and they don't care about the value, I don't believe that's honest. Everyone is looking for a return of some sort on an investment. You don't want to waste money. If you're not thinking about that, then you should be. That's my personal opinion on that. But with the baseball cards and sports cards, I've quickly realized that a Beckett price guide can tell you that a card is worth so much, but you can never get that back out of it. And especially, I realized that because at that time you had to go to sports cards stores and stuff like that. Like I said, there was no internet back then in the early 90s and stuff. And I realized that, okay, this sports card book says that this card is worth $40, and then you try to sell it to a card shop and they want to give you $10 for it, $5. Well, and that really got reaffirmed when eBay showed up. And then you start looking on eBay at prices for stuff, and yeah, the book says it's worth this, but you can only sell it for a fraction of that. And I realized, okay, this isn't going to benefit me in the future at all, so I'm not going to waste my money anymore. And I switched to comic books. Another thing I didn't like about the sports cards thing is you buy a pack of 11 cards, and it's a gamble. I do not like to gamble. I don't go to the casino. I don't buy scratch-off tickets. I don't waste my money. So I felt like that was just a complete gamble. You might get a good card, you might not. Chances are you won't. So comic books were more enticing to me because if you buy it, you have it. You have it in your hand. I paid $5-6 for this, whatever it is, and I have it. There's no guessing game. That was very appealing about comic books to me. So that's why I switched to comic books, is because I knew that there's no guesswork. If I want the book, you buy the book, you got the book, And speaking of, the first comic book that I ever bought, I have it. I pulled it out of one of my boxes here. This is 1995. This is the very first comic book that I ever purchased. And this is X-Men Prime. From 95, and it's 95 shiny goodness. X-Men Prime. 1995. The very first DOS Comics comic book. And I was talking to my son the other day, because I recently had a chance. Not a chance, I could have if I just had to pull the trigger. I had an opportunity to purchase a Hulk 181, first appearance of Wolverine, about a week ago. And the funny thing is I actually had the money in my hand. I was going to buy this book, and it was a mid-grade. It was about a 6. And the guy sent me nice high-quality scans of it, and it was a beautiful book. It really was. But he was asking $2,000 for it. And I actually pulled the money out, and I had the money in my hand. I was going to go buy this book. And it just I kept thinking about, because I'm kind of on a different path right now. I'm, like I said, I'm 51 years old. And I got thinking about better ways to make that money work for me, and I talked myself out of it, which I think was the right move in my, I don't like going backwards. I don't like reaching back and buying old back issues. My focus is new books, and that's another topic all on itself. Maybe I'll do a rant type rambling video like this when it comes to new books, because a lot of people are, new books suck and the comic book industry is dying and all this doom and gloom stuff, and that's a topic that I would like to address. In the future I will do that, because I have a different opinion on that. But yeah, so I had this opportunity to buy that book, and like I said, I try not to reach back into back issues. I'm more focused on what's coming out now and that kind of thing, because it's to me it's a better investment. Honestly, it is a better investment, because the upside for new comics, the upside is better, I believe, than reaching back to a book from the 60s that's worth $10 now that book ain't going to get no more valuable. But you buy a book today off the shelf that 10 years from now becomes an IP that is known to everyone, all the normies and everything, then that is going to be like the Miles Morales book. Miles Morales Ultimate Fallout 4, to me, is a much better investment than some random Silver Age book or a collection of Silver Age books, because their value is, there's no, you got to look at the ceiling. What is the ceiling, for future gain type of thing? I don't think people think about that. They just romanticize the Silver Age and stuff. And I have one Silver Age book, and that was by accident. I have Marvel Superheroes number 12, the first appearance of Captain Marvel. I have that book, and I don't even know how I got it, to be honest. I never bought it, I know that for sure. But anyway, getting back to what I was talking about with this X-Men Prime book. I was talking to my son after I decided not to buy that book. And I got to talking to him about this X-Men Prime, and we were talking because we geek out together. We're always talking about this kind of stuff. And I told him, and I mean this, and you might call me crazy, but I don't care, because this is how I feel about this stuff. This is the collector that I am. This is how I view this. If I had the opportunity, if somebody put the two books down in front of me and said, you can keep this book, and not just any random X-Men Prime, this particular copy, you can keep that, or you can have that Hulk 181. 10 times out of 10, I would keep this book. You know why? Because I can't replace this. This is the first comic book I ever purchased. I can always buy a Hulk 181. I have no emotional connection to Incredible Hulk 181. I have a very strong sentimental connection to this book because I know where I bought this. I know who worked at the shop that I bought this in 1995. I know where I lived. I know what my mindset was. There's a big connection to this book, and it's worth more than $10 to me. So anyway, that's kind of the story that I wanted to tell on that. And I do want to get in on a little bit of discussion about modern comics and the doom and gloom that goes on with people. Comic books are dying. I've been hearing comic books are dying for 20 years. Honestly, I've been hearing that for 20 years. So anyway, yeah, that's it. Tell me what you think in the comments below. And if you like this kind of video, please subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.